So imagine that you're a CEO or financial director or boss or investors are saying things like, "You rock! Your sales are incredible! They are out of control!" And you want to present that information in English to an English speaking or international client or customer or colleague, then you need to know how to describe upward movements in graphs. So for example, how would you describe this? Or how would you describe this? Or how would you describe what happens here? Or how would you describe what happens here? So all of those things are upward movements in graphs, and you can use verbs like increase, grow, go up, rise. So I'll write them here. And you also need to know these verbs in the past. So increased, went up, grew, and rose. So let's use these verbs on these graphs here. So you can see with this and this, it's a different kind of upward movement. So in this there's more of an increase, and in this there's less of an increase. So in this case you can say sales rose steadily throughout the year. So I'll write that here. Okay, so you could also use any of these verbs here. So you could say sales increased steadily throughout the year, or with grow, sales grew steadily throughout the year, or sales went up steadily throughout the year. So let's compare that with the second graph. So you can use the same verb, but you need to use a different adverb. So the adverb here, in this case, would be gradually. So that would describe less of an increase. So you could say sales rose gradually throughout the year. So I'll write it here. And like in the first example, you could also use the other verbs. So you could say with increase, sales increased gradually throughout the year, or sales went up gradually throughout the year, or sales grew gradually throughout the year. Let's have a look at the next example. So this here is remained at the same level, or remained the same. So you could say sales remained the same until June, and then they rose sharply. So this would be rose sharply. So I'll write that example here. Okay, sales remained the same until June, and then rose sharply. Again, you can also use the other verbs here. You can say increased sharply, or went up sharply, or grew sharply. Again, you can use the same verbs also to talk about subscriptions or productivity or any other verbs or nouns when you want to describe upward movement in a graph, or when you want to normally talk about if it's sales or subscriptions, to talk about success. So finally, let's have a look at this one here. So with this point here, this is a peak, and the verb is peaked. Sales peaked in June. Sales peaked in June. And then here you could say fluctuated. So fluctuated over summer, and then the last verb would be leveled off. So they fluctuated and then they leveled off. So they leveled off in September. So I hope you really enjoyed talking about success. What a great thing to talk about upward movements in graphs. I will make another video to talk about downward movements or to talk about fluctuations, so make sure to stay tuned and watch the second video. And if you want to practice something like this, if you want a really cool, nice exercise to practice this, I would recommend you go to the website ecenglish.com, and you'll find a really nice exercise there. There's a lot of exercises, but you'll find a really nice exercise on this topic here of describing upward movements in graphs. Thanks a lot for watching the video. Enjoy sharing your success and come back for more. See you soon. If you want to see more video tips like this, just click on these videos here. So when do we use in, on, at to talk about time and to talk about location? This video will talk about the top 3 tips to remember vocabulary. So do you know the difference between this and this? Why